it's Wednesday, so you know what that means, everybody. GC Live here on Gamecock Central. Kendall Smith and Jack Veltri joining you here midway through the day. We hope that you've had a great start to your day, and we hope that this maybe serves as a nice little break, Jack. I don't know. Is anybody tuning in from work? Like, do you put on your headphones and listen from work? I don't know. Maybe you're at home. Maybe you're in your car. Whatever you're doing, welcome into the show. We're so glad that you are joining us. Today, we've got a lot to get to. And Jack, before we get into all of that, our weekly check-in. I mean, we text a little bit, but our weekly check-in, what's going on with you?
Not much, Kendall. It's good to hear from you. And yeah, not much going on right now. We got softball starting tomorrow, so we're getting ready for that. We got baseball. Yeah, baseball scrimmages are kind of nearing the end now, as opening day is only 9 days away right now. It'll be next Friday before you know it. And then men's basketball is men's basketball. And yeah, that's all that's going on right now. And we got a lot of football to talk about today, as we obviously heard from Shane Beamer a little earlier today. But yeah, doing well. And Kendall, you were just telling me before, you're leaving for Italy tomorrow, which is quite crazy.
I am. So, like last minute, you're just trying to get everything together. I'm like, do I have enough of this? Do I have enough of this? Am I good to go here? All my outfits need to be planned. And I'm going to the Winter Olympics in Milan. So I will be in Milan, and then I'll also be up in the Dolomites area for like the snowboarding, skiing portion of the program. So my fear is, because it gets down to like 5 degrees there, that I will not be prepared enough when it comes to the cold weather. I will say we experienced like the most epic snow I've ever seen here in Charlotte last week. So I got a little bit of a warm up, but I'm not going to lie, I am a little bit stressed for how I will react to that cold of weather. I think Milan is supposed to be a little bit more reasonable, like 30s, somewhere in that range, but 5 degrees, like that doesn't even register to me. Like that is not...
It's not normal.
It's just not like a real temperature. It can't possibly be a real temperature. So anyways, I'm certainly excited for it. I can't wait. I'm going to have all the updates over on my social media. So definitely looking forward to that. But Jack, I feel like every week you and I are in the show and we're like, okay, this is probably going to be the last time we talk about football for a little bit, everybody. We're going to get into more basketball. We'll get into more baseball next week. Yada, yada, yada. Well, here we are talking about more football because Shane Beamer spoke here today. But before we talk about all of that, Clint Hammond, our guy, is the reason why this show is happening right now.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, if you are in the market to buy a home or need help with your mortgage, any of those housing needs that may be complicated and confusing, give a call to our guy, Clint Hammond. He's been in the mortgage industry for more than 20 years now. He is a lifelong Gamecock fan, a longtime supporter of Gamecock Central and all of our GC Live programs. He's, in fact, been the presenting sponsor for as long as I can remember. So as long as I've been here and Kendall's been here, he's been the guy to reach out to as our presenting sponsor. Information's above us here on screen, but if you are listening and can't see what's going on screen right now, 803-422-6797 is the number to call. The NMLS number for Clint is 71597, or go to clinthammond.com for more info. He'll get you set up, squared away, clear up any confusion you may have, and get you on that way towards securing your future.
Okay, let's talk about what Shane Beamer had to say earlier today. There's actually a lot to get to, several different topics that I feel like people wanted answers to, and those questions were able to be asked earlier today to Shane. The first one that I think really stands out, because a lot of people do kind of base their plans around this in the spring, is the 2026 spring game, Jack. And according to Shane Beamer, he's not expecting that to happen in Williams-Brice Stadium this year. Obviously, Willie B is undergoing some construction, which would make it a little bit difficult for South Carolina to be able to play there. And he gave the answer earlier that, yeah, he's not anticipating that. But what does that mean for the spring game going forward? And do you think South Carolina will still have a big weekend, so to speak, where fans can come out and enjoy some time in Columbia?
Yeah, we got the audio cut up from it, so let me play that real quick, and we'll get into what he had to say and just what our thoughts are on it afterwards.
Here, I would not anticipate a spring game taking place in Williams-Brice Stadium because of the construction. So shout out Greg Hughes and Contract Construction. But having said that, Hale, we've got the greatest fans in America, and I always want to make sure that we do right by our fans. So we've got to do what's best for construction. We've got to do what's best for our fans. We've got to do what's best for our team in regards to spring practice, but should have some more information on that as we go forward. But, don't anticipate an actual game, so to speak, taking place in the state.
So my thoughts on it are, it makes sense that it's the outcome that you don't want to happen, right? I think everyone wants to see South Carolina play a spring game. The way I look at it is, he didn't outwardly say there's not going to be a spring game. More so, the gist of it from what I got from what he had to say there was that it's just not going to happen at Williams-Brice Stadium. So is there an alternative that South Carolina could look at here? Do they just – the thing with the spring game is, it's not like it needs to be played in a large venue, right? I think you could afford to play the spring game. You're not going to do it at the practice facility because there's just not there's no seating there or anything to make that work. You're not going to open up practice for the fans, not that I know of. You could always look at maybe an alternate site somewhere, maybe Benedict right down the road, which I believe holds about 12,000 people. So maybe that's something you look at doing. But just from the sound of it, maybe we will see the route of them just canceling the spring game outright this year. I even wrote about it in a little story today. Maybe they just look to do something entirely different. I mentioned it on radio today on 107.5. Ole Miss didn't do a spring game last year under Lane Kiffin. They did some basketball dunk contest and some other games and whatnot. South Carolina maybe do a flag football game or something. I'm not sure exactly what they could do. And we got a suggestion here from Big Red. Could they televise it from the practice facility? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think they would do that, but who knows? I think there's different options they could go down, but I think right now the most likely is that they won't have a spring game at all.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate, and I can certainly understand the fans that are upset about that, because that's something that South Carolina has made into a really big deal, especially over these last few years with adding in some other things happening. There's been 5Ks, and obviously when baseball plays at home or softball plays at home, that kind of adds to the entire experience. So it's upsetting. I don't know why. The first thing that came to my head is I'm just go to Irvo High School, play a spring game.
I mean that would even be an option.
Serve, give a little love to these local high schools and go out to one, pick one. I say Irmo because that's obviously home of Nikki Minwari. So, they did you a favor by giving you him, and do them a favor back. Put your spring game over there, and whoever shows up, shows up. And, I think that would be kind of cool. I don't think they would ever do that, but how cool would that be to be a player at that school and be yeah, South Carolina just played its spring game on our high school field.
That'd be pretty cool. And again, this is going to probably see, I wonder how this affects the future, because it all has to do with the construction going on at the stadium. So this is a multi-year project, which began right after the season ended and will continue for the next few years to come. I wonder how this would affect the spring game moving forward, because you're hoping this is just a one-off type of situation where it's only this year. And look, the renovations at Willie B come first and foremost. I think most people would rather have the spring game canceled right now rather than, oh, wait, South Carolina can't play in its home stadium to begin the 2026 season. That's not going to be the case. They'll pause the renovations and pick it back up after the season ends, when South Carolina is done playing this upcoming year. But I think it would be kind of cool to do something just completely one-off, different, give the fans some sort of event. It could also just literally be a fan fest type thing that, I'm sure they've done this before with other sports in the past, but, kind of just have the guys sign autographs, do a Q&A, just something to fill the void, I think would be good. And to give the most important thing, I think, with the spring game is to give people, the common folk fans that aren't at practice like the media is, a chance to see these guys, learn more about them. I think you can still do that even without having to play a game. You could do flag football, do a media type of fan fest type thing. There's a lot of different routes you could go down, but I do feel they need to do something to fill the gap. I think it would be kind of a mistake just to cancel it and not do anything during that weekend.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there's something that can be done and it should be done. So if you're listening, athletics department, if you're listening, South Carolina football, I'm sure you are, by the way, right? Like they're obviously tuning into midday GC Live every Wednesday with us. Of course, they're not busy with other things. Yeah, but if you're listening, think about it. It could be fun. Okay. That's all I'm saying. It would be great. And yeah, we have an example right there. What is that other stadium that I can't remember the name? It's in Columbia or it's in Casey.
What?
Everyone knows what I'm talking about.
Oh, Brooklyn, Casey? Brooklyn,
No,
Casey now?
I can't remember what it's called, but it's like semi-big.
Like a high school?
I don't know if it belongs to high school or if it's just a stadium. Honestly, I've been to a game there once, but you guys will know what I'm talking about. It's kind of bigger, and it's like right over the bridge. I do think it's in Casey. I don't know. Maybe it is Brooklyn, Casey. That could be.
I'm trying to think.
But somewhere there's definitely options. Okay, so that's the latest on the spring game. As of right now, it's not happening, but we will see if something changes or if they come up with a creative way to make it happen for all of you. Next up, Josiah Thompson. This was an interesting scenario that we had going on just a few weeks ago. Josiah Thompson was leaving, and then he's not leaving, and then he's back, and it's a whole thing. And Shane Beamer, of course, spoke on that, Jack. So what happened? What was the drama there?
I saw somebody in the comment section saying that they couldn't hear the audio. I'm gonna play it it's about a 2-minute clip from him because honestly, it's a lot easier to hear Shane explain it than myself and miss something here. But we'll play it, and if you guys can't hear it, let us know. But hopefully, it will play.
Yeah, I think every situation is different, and I typically don't. The conversations I had, they went back to prior to Christmas, David, with Josiah in exit meetings, conversations with his parents before Christmas. And then I'll be honest with you, I was completely blindsided and shocked when he called me after Christmas or January, whenever that was, to tell me that he was going to enter the portal. And we had a conversation about why and didn't necessarily agree. But he chose that path to go initially. I moved on. He moved on, I think. I told him, just full disclosure, that understand I have to go replace you. And if you're going to go in the portal, then let's be real, there's a money aspect of it. Now we have to go find offensive tackles and offensive linemen. And we did, and wished him well. And we left on great terms. And any school that called me about Josiah, I had nothing but positive things to say. I love him. I love his family. And then he, to his credit, he reached out to me on his own, and we had a great conversation about the possibility of coming back. Obviously, at that point, things had changed here in a lot of ways with some more offensive linemen that we brought in. But I know what kind of young man Josiah is. I know what kind of player he is. I know his family. I've been in his home in Dillon. And no, I would not do that. We had other players, just to be completely honest, that went in the portal and reached out and wanted to come back, and I said no. And that happened on more than one occasion because of how they left and maybe the reasons they left for. Josiah wouldn't put in that boat. So typically, no, I wouldn't let him come back, but I do believe every situation is different. And Josiah and I both had some open and honest conversations and shot each other straight. And in the end, he makes our team better, and I'm happy that he's back here with us.
So I'm hoping everyone was able to hear that. Were you able to hear that, Kendall?
I hear it.
Okay, cool.
I don't know about everybody else.
Okay, yeah. I have typically when I've played audio, it's been fine, but hopefully everyone was able to hear it. If not, the basic gist of it was, in case you haven't seen it over the last month or so, Josiah entered the portal on January 3rd. Then about 11 days later, January 14th, he is back at South Carolina, right? It comes out official. He's returning. And this is something that, to my knowledge, under Beamer, this is something he mentions it in his statement there. He typically does not let guys come back after they decide to leave the program, enter the portal. And as he mentioned, he told no to a bunch of guys. Like, the only case I can think of where this is like kind of happened was when Gilbert Edmond was with South Carolina for a few years. Then he left for Florida State. Then he wanted to come back to South Carolina 2 years ago, and Beamer wasn't happy about him leaving at first, and then eventually allowed him to come back. So it's a little bit of a similar situation, not exactly the same, because Josiah never transferred anywhere. So it seems like there was a little bit of, I don't know if remorse. I don't want to speak for anyone, but it sounds like from what Beamer had to say, there was a little bit of probably it just didn't work out in the portal, and Josiah wanted to come back. And here's the thing. South Carolina had filled that spot. Like, they've got Jacarius Peak, who's likely going to be their starting offensive tackle on the left side, which is where Josiah started the last 2 years. So he's going to have to figure that out, whether it's playing the other tackle spot or moving to guard, being a backup. It's not an ideal situation for Josiah, but honestly, he's got no one to really blame but himself, and potentially just not getting good advice from those closest to him. Because Shane, like he said, he was shocked that Josiah decided to enter the portal. So this is just the reality of college athletics now, where guys make decisions. They're 18 to 24-year-old kids, and they're making decisions. It may not always be the smartest decisions, but the good news is for Josiah, he's back at South Carolina. He, like Shane said, makes this offensive line better, and you're hoping now going into his junior year, he can be a contributor and have a better season than he did in 2025.
Yes, I agree. And it is interesting the way that all played out, but appreciate obviously the authenticity from Shane Beamer on that one and just kind of laying it out for everybody, because it was something where a lot of people were questioning. And Shane has always kind of been one in the past, as you said, to like kind of say, if you're leaving, you're leaving. And it is what it is. So the only other situation I can remember with like the portal where Shane was maybe a little bit more forgiving about it would be with Robbie Ashford, correct? Like when he let him stick around.
That too, yes, that's another good example.
That's another example of him letting him stay, even though he was entering the portal. So there are obviously select cases in which he will kind of bend a little bit more, and this was clearly one of them. So he sees benefit to that, and Josiah Thompson will obviously return in 2026. So that is the story there. And as we continue, because there were a lot of topics that were discussed here today, let's get on to tampering. Okay, let's talk about this, because this is an interesting subject. We didn't really get into it last week, but we've heard Dabo Sweeney's comments on it, or unless you've been living under a rock, then you haven't. But most people probably have heard what he's had to say about this. And there's some drama going on with Pete Golding and Ole Miss, and this is just an entire story. So, of course, it spans across the college football landscape, and Shane Beamer was asked about it earlier today, Jack, and he said that it's not really for him to figure out what the exact punishment for it should be, but he thinks that it should be severe. This obviously makes life a lot harder for these college football coaches, as if it's not difficult enough dealing with everything they've got going on. But give us some more insight as to what Shane had to say with the tampering situation we're seeing across college football.
Yeah, he was, not unsurprisingly, he was asked about it, and a little bit vaguely at first, not referencing Clemson. Then eventually he was asked about Dabo Sweeney and how it all played out. And he feels like that's the first, that's the next step in figuring this whole problem out, is calling it out and calling coaches out for it. Because look, the NCAA, we'll see if they do anything about it. It's been brought to their attention, but it's up in the air and uncertain what the answer is going to look like, or if there's going to be any punishment. More likely than not, it's probably going to be a slap on the wrist. And Pete Golding, I would just guess, maybe gets suspended for like a game or something, gets fined, and that's that. That's not going to stop anyone from necessarily tampering until the punishment becomes a bit more harsh. And that's exactly what Shane was alluding to, was that he just outwardly said the penalty should be more severe for tampering. And I agree with him, because there's rules, but it's like there's not really anyone like enforcing them. And again, like, we will see how this whole Ole Miss Clemson situation plays out with the Luke Farrelly kid that transferred from Cal to Clemson. Now he's going to Ole Miss, and there just needs to be, I think, stricter rules and more clarity on okay, if you're doing this, you're going to get severely punished, and that's just the way it should work. And he was kind of talking about that there's just a real gray area in all of this of trying to figure out, okay, what's black and what's white in the situation. And, it's something that probably happens a lot more than we know, but we're hearing about this Dabo situation as like the real first. I can't really remember a time where we've heard a coach publicly call out another coach and a team for tampering and recruiting another player that already signed with another school. I'm sure it happens a lot more than we know, but to my knowledge, I haven't heard any coaches besides Dabo really talking about it. So I think Dabo's totally in the right on what happened, and it should be called out. It should, because it's wrong and it's not okay. Like, if South Carolina recruited, I don't know, a 4-star transfer offensive lineman to come to school, he signs, and the only thing you could say against Clemson apparently is that Farrelly didn't sign like a rev share. He hadn't signed like a rev share agreement yet, but he was enrolled in school at Clemson, was on the football team. And then it's like, Pete Golding comes along. What's the buyout? And is able to, just kind of get him to come to Ole Miss. It's just confusing, and it's a different situation than anything I've really ever seen, and it's something that should not be happening again. But when is there going to be anything considerable to make teams not want to do that?
I agree. And I think it's just, the reality show that is college football nowadays. I will say, if a coach was going to call it out, like if a coach was going to call another coach out, I would have guessed it would have been Dabo. I'm not saying that in a bad way. He's just always been very outspoken about this type of stuff, especially since NIL has come into the picture and the transfer portal and this, that, and the other. He has always been one to kind of share his opinion. So if someone's going to call somebody out, it's probably going to be Dabo, especially when it comes to these topics. And it is just a wider conversation that is to be had. We talked about this actually earlier today with like, what is correct with the transfer portal? Because right now we see an era where like, you can go wherever you want. You don't have any loyalty to anybody. And after the year's over, it's like, okay, like if I want to say bye to this team, I'm saying bye and I'm going somewhere else where maybe I can make more money or have a better situation. And he said something along the lines of he doesn't see why a one-time transfer rule and then having to sit out after that couldn't be the case. And he thinks that rule should actually be implemented again. And I 1000% agree with that. 1000% agree with that. That has been the hardest thing since this change in college football for me. The NIL is one thing. Let the guys get paid for their name, image, and likeness. Okay, these are top tier athletes. You're making a ton of money off of their names. Let them get paid for it. But the transfer situation has gotten ridiculous. It is completely out of hand. It is ruining college football. And I am so sick of it. Sorry, like I'm going to get on my soapbox right now, but I agree with everything that Shane said. This needs to be stopped. You can't just have people leaving, going to 4 or 5 different schools, whatever they want to do. Like there's literally zero repercussions for making these decisions that are ultimately going to impact a bunch of other people too. And I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I think that if you make a decision as big as that, there should be some sort of ramification to it in a sense. Like if you transfer once, okay, but then you've got to have to sit out at some point. It can't be every year that you're going to another school. It's way, 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 way too much. In my opinion, sure, people will disagree. I don't really care. That's how I feel.
I'm with you on that. No, who wants to be a TJ Finley going to 5 or 6 different schools in a 5-year span? It's silly. And the other thing we don't even think about with all this, because let's be honest, these athletes, they might be student athletes, but a lot of them, I'm sure, are not in it for the education. That's the other part of it, is like when you transfer from school to school, newsflash, all of your credits do not transfer automatically. Like there may be some cases where some of your credits don't transfer, and that screws up your graduation date and all that. I know it doesn't really matter, and I'm sure there are ways to get around it, but there's just like it's just crazy to me when you see a guy like we're going to get to a point where these guys will be in the NFL, and when they do the Sunday Night Football intros, we're going to have guys saying they went to Clemson, Alabama, Georgia, Texas, like all in the same sentence instead of so-and-so from this university. Like it's absolutely insane. And Shane was also mentioning something along the lines today of that there were guys that were really interested in coming to South Carolina, but mainly the money was the ultimate deciding factor and why they maybe decided to choose a different school, and South Carolina wasn't going to budge on money. And good for them, because look, if you're offering these guys like $1 million or whatever the case might be, I think that's probably fair. And I'm not sure exactly what position we're talking about here when Shane mentions that stuff, but like these guys, like if you're offering something fair and then this other school comes in with a higher offer, well, okay, well, you can't really do much about that. You can go into this bidding war, but is it really worth it? Especially when you have to allocate. You only have so much money, right? It's not like you have money growing from trees. You got to really be smart about how you're spending your money on what's a very large roster with a lot of scholarship players. So, all this to be said, look, college football and college athletics are screwed up. Don't even get me started on the whole schedule that just came out yesterday with the quarterfinals and the semis of the national championship, where we got 2-week breaks in between the quarters and semis. It makes no sense to me, but yeah, I think we just got on our soapbox right there. And
we did, and it's
a
like
lot of issues.
There's a lot of issues, and I get it. You're making money. That's great. But if you want to be the NFL and you want to get treated like the NFL, then there has to be other rules and regulations in place. And that's just my 2 cents on the subject. Like, it's starting to be more and more like the NFL with what we're seeing. And so if you're going to have it that way, then do you have to sign to a school for X amount of time? Like, and then obviously you're talking a lot deeper situations. Like, if guys sign to a team in the NFL, they're expecting to play a certain amount. They're not. They might request a trade. Like, there's just a lot, and you can't have trades in college football. There's just a lot that
you say that now. We're going to get to a point where we do get trades. I will literally, like, oh my God, if that happens, I'm going to still do my job. But man, I'm going to like bash my head into a wall if I see trades happen, because that is the last thing that should happen. It's, oh my God, don't even,
I never thought
I didn't think about that.
Like, see the day where I feel like professional sports are like less complicated than the college world. And that's how I feel, because I primarily work in pro sports and we deal with trades all the time, and we deal with roster moves, and there's differences in, people's contracts, and that's, happening consistently, obviously at the professional level. That's what it's all about. But college has just become this, it's honestly sad in some ways. Some of it was needed, and the money things, again, like I said, I completely understand. But if it's going to be like you want it to essentially be like the NFL junior, then there's going to have to be other things that are implemented in order to fix it. And who knows how many people are going to have to get involved for that to get fixed. That's all I'll say. So that is that on the state of college football. Let's talk about South Carolina having an older team this year. This is exciting. Shane Beamer said older teams are always the better teams. Typically, they are. When you have that experience, when you have the veterans, when you have guys that are kind of used to it, they've been there when the lights are on, the spotlight's shining, and they've performed in that moment, it's a little easier to do it again. And South Carolina, I think, is feeling confident about that this year. Shane talked about it a little bit earlier today, Jack.
To me, the best teams are the oldest teams. I've used the example of teams in the SEC. You look at Vanderbilt last season and look at the number of juniors and seniors they had playing, starting for them. You look at, I think, Missouri defensively. You look at Alabama defensively. There were a lot of teams last year. You look across the country, they were really good. They were talented, don't get me wrong. They were well coached, but they were older. And, you want to bring in talented players, don't get me wrong. It doesn't matter how old. There's a lot of older people in this room. I don't think we're going to go out and compete for an SEC championship, myself included, just because we're older. But that's definitely an aspect of it. And I was just meeting with some of the older guys on our team this morning and talking about that. I knew, and I've said this before to you guys, I knew we were going to be better in 2024 than people thought on the outside because we had so much veteran leadership, older guys coming back. And it's certainly something that we always want to do. And no question about it. We've definitely gotten older. I mean, you look at the people that we signed in the portal, they're not just older guys, but they've got a lot of production. They've played a lot of football. They have a ton of experience. They've been through battles. And we didn't have enough of that last year. We've certainly increased that and wanted to be very aggressive in trying to get not just older guys, but certainly production. And we've definitely gotten older. There's a different field, and still young in a lot of positions, don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of guys here right now that have played a lot of football.
So, yeah, like I agree, Kendall. They have certainly gotten older, and I think that's probably for the better. Not to say that, like, you don't need or can't have younger impact guys in your team. Of course you can. Like, South Carolina still has a lot of younger guys on this team, but I think we have seen it with I asked this question to Shane today with the answer he just gave, and I mentioned, Kendall, Indiana as the example of a team that didn't have 5 stars, but they went out in the portal and got a lot of guys that have experience playing at different schools. Kurt Cignetti brought players over from JMU with him, and it's led to them going on a 16-0 season and winning a national championship after 2 years ago being a 3-win team in the Big Ten.
One of the losingest college football programs in the country.
Ever. Like, Indiana, before the last 2 years, does not have a football history, right?
It has a history. It's just terrible. Before.
Yeah. Let's rephrase. They've never had a good history. Outside of, like, the 79 Holiday Bowl and the 2020 season with Penix, like, yeah, Indiana's never been like what they are now. And so I brought up Indiana to Shane because it's like, okay, we've seen what Indiana can do. Do you feel like you guys, as well as other teams around the country, have like a blueprint to follow now of, okay, go into the portal, get older, experienced guys, and it should lead to more success, which Big Red brings it up. Didn't South Carolina have a veteran team when they had the 9-win season? Yes, exactly. They brought in a lot of older guys that had played at different schools. Regardless of higher or lower levels, they brought in players that knew the game and were in their last years of eligibility. We're seeing the same thing kind of happen. That's not to say South Carolina didn't do that last year, but let's face it, and even Shane mentioned a handful of times, they were a much younger team last season. So they've gotten older. They will obviously have to grow this chemistry with being such a new type of team with a lot of different faces on it that weren't here last year. But you got 7 months until the season begins, and that's a lot of time to really develop and get this thing right before September 5th rolls around.
All right, a couple more things to talk about here today, but our friends at Ferry Chevrolet deserve a shout out, Jack.
Yeah, absolutely. And with Ferry Chevrolet, if you're a Gamecock fan who's interested in a new or used vehicle, make sure you reach out to our friends over at Ferry Chevrolet in Orangeburg, South Carolina. They are led by a 4th-generation dealer in Joseph Ferry. The family-owned business over at Ferry Chevrolet has been serving the community since 1926. Conveniently located just off of I-26 between Columbia and Charleston, the folks over at Ferry Chevrolet are local, trustworthy, and always transparent. The business began in St. Matthews and was built on honesty, integrity, and a handshake, and they still operate with those same principles to this day. Head on over to ferrychevrolet.com today to check out their inventory and to get in touch.
Okay, Jack, one more thing before we get out of here with South Carolina. Big transfer portal period is finally over, and Shane Beamer was able to give his thoughts on how he felt like South Carolina did. What did he say? What's he thinking about South Carolina's portal? Did he give it an A- like you did?
I should have asked him what his grade would have been.
Wes also gave them an A-.
Okay. So I'm not insane. That's what I'm hearing. I'm not crazy thinking that South Carolina actually did pretty well. Yeah. So there were a lot of different, just as we kind of mentioned here, not all the discussions in the press conference today were just about transfer guys and all that, like tampering, Josiah Thompson, the spring game. Like we've hit on Nicky Minwari is mentioned a handful of times today with being in the Super Bowl. So there was a lot of different topics that we got into today. But as far as like what he said about specific positions that they got transfers, by the way, they had 43 visitors in 17 days during the transfer portal window. Just that's crazy. I don't know what other teams have had in terms of guys coming in and out. I'm sure there's more at other schools, but that's a lot of guys to bring in and try to fill those needs. And they brought in 25 plus transfers. So it's a lot of new guys coming in. I will say this, what he had to say about the running back room in particular was interesting because he felt like last year they just did not have enough bodies, right? They had, I think it was, let's see, Rasul Faison, Attaway, Howell, Fuller, Augustavi. You had 5 scholarship running backs, and only 3 of them are returning this year. So, and the other thing was that Shane mentioned, I think that's ultimately why Marquell Blackwell is no longer the running backs coach, is that South Carolina didn't sign a high school running back in the last 2 years of recruiting. So they needed to go attack in the offseason here, and they've done that. They brought in they brought in Christian Clark from Texas, and they brought in the guys from Ohio State and Penn State. So I think this is a running back room that, look, it's good on its own with Howell and Fuller, but even Shane was mentioning, like, that's not going to be enough to get you through an entire season, especially from a practice standpoint. Like, he mentioned it. Having 4 scholarship running backs is not enough to practice with. So the Gamecocks are much more well-equipped in that area. And, of course, he mentioned the fact that they really did good recruiting on the offensive and defensive line. So overall, this is a pretty good portal class, and I'll stick with my answer. Like, I'm giving them A-. I would have loved to ask Shane what his grade. I'm assuming he would have said A+, but time will tell how it looks. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what these guys do in the spring when we get out there for practice, and then once the season gets here, because I think this is a much improved team compared to this time last year.
Well, fingers certainly crossed. It needs to be. Not everybody knows that. So we'll see. Yeah, you should have asked Shane. You should have been like, Kendall wants to know what is your grade for your transfer portal class. She asks me this every week on GC Live, and since she can't be here in person, she would like to know.
I should have.
Like, put me on FaceTime and zoom me into.
Oh my God, he would have answered it too. Anything for Kendall. So
he is the best. He is seriously the best. This is an interesting question. We can talk about this a little bit more, Wes and I can, on the recruiting rundown, so stay tuned on that. I don't know if it necessarily hurts recruiting, but like we have talked about, that is a big weekend for South Carolina. And there's a lot going on, and it's a great opportunity to showcase Columbia. It's a great opportunity to showcase Williams-Brice Stadium and the atmosphere and what South Carolina has to offer and kind of what they're doing. So I don't think it like makes or breaks, but it's not like ideal circumstances. This is not an ideal circumstance across the board. It's just not, because for South Carolina also, the spring game is kind of the one opportunity in Willie B before the season starts where there are fans that are going to be in there, and you're going to, it's not nearly the same as an actual game day, but it gives you like a little taste of that. Shane's talked about this plenty of times before. You don't get preseason games in college football. So that's like the one time that this roster is going to have the opportunity. Of course, yes, they will practice at Williams-Brice Stadium, and they'll do scrimmages there during their fall camp, preseason camp, but they aren't going to have another opportunity like this. So it's probably not ideal for anybody, to be honest with you, but it's what South Carolina is dealing with this year, and that's just how it is. I'll be out all next week. So
yeah, we'll see about GC Live. Yeah, we'll see about GC Live again. 6 hours ahead. That might be a little tough. One thing I will mention just about the whole spring game hurting recruiting. Like, I agree to some extent. It's interesting because Shane mentioned today, I can't remember the exact quote, but in terms of the games this past season that stood out most to recruits, the one they potentially mentioned the most was the SC State game, surprisingly, is the one where it's like, wow, the fans were just insane, because that was the game where you had the weather delay and the fans decided to stay the 3+ hour delay and and it was still rocking at kickoff at like 9 o'clock or whatever time that game started. So I think it would be good to show, like, it'd be good to have the spring game in some capacity and have the fans out there and have recruits. Logistically, does it make sense with the stadium being not able to use and having to try to figure something else out? No, I don't think so. I'm sure South Carolina will still have plenty of recruits there that weekend to check out the facilities and whatnot without a game. Again, this is why I go back to this suggestion that they need to do something else just to get the fans out there to see this team in some capacity. Again, like a fan fest, a flag football game, moving the spring game literally down the road to another stadium. Heck, I don't know. You got a lot of options, honestly. And I think that could still be something to impress the recruits. Does it make a big difference? No, I don't think so. It's not. It would not be the same as holding a game inside Willie B. But look, you're kind of in a situation right now where you don't have that luxury, and you got to figure something else out. But yeah, we'll see. I'm hoping they do something, but I don't know if they're going to.
I don't think most recruits are making their decisions based off spring games. It definitely helps, as we've said, but
it'd be crazy if that was the case.
South Carolina will have its shot at redemption during the season when Williams-Brice Stadium is rocking at night and you've got the light show and it's a whole vibe. So not necessarily worried about it. It would be nice to have it, but you can make do without it. So with that being said, we wish the softball team the best of luck tomorrow, taking on Virginia Tech. Yeah,
that's correct. Virginia Tech,
19, ranked team in the country. South Carolina 12.
It's going to be. Let me check the temperature. It's going to be freezing tomorrow night. The high tomorrow is 45 degrees. The low is 35. We're talking about temperatures in the 30s by first pitch. It's going to be a chilly one tomorrow night.
That is crazy. Well, good luck to them. They had such a great season last year. I'm really excited to see what they do this season. And yeah, hopefully they bring some wins. And we'll talk about baseball too here at some point. We talked about it a little bit last week. There's been some unfortunate news with baseball, but we'll see how the season goes for them. This is their chance at
redemption,
yes, but it's their chance to show resilience.
There you go. That's a good word. Yeah.
It's the year of resilience for the baseball team.
Yes.
Jack is excited because he loves baseball. Before we get out of here, I'm going to be in Italy for the Super Bowl. So what do we got?
Ooh, I got the Seahawks winning. I got them winning 24-21. I'm a little reluctant in saying that because it's the Patriots, and anytime you pick against them, it's typically wrong. But I am going with the Seahawks. I want to see Nicky Manwari and Ernest Jones win a Super Bowl.
I want to see that as well. I'm hoping that for them. I think I've told the story here. I told it on Recruiting Rundown. The May family is phenomenal. One of their sons, Cole, played baseball with my brother all growing up. So I remember 10, 11-year-old Drake May at these tournaments running around, and just a phenomenal family, great guy. What you see is what you get with them. I mean, really just a great family. So I would not be upset at all to see them succeed in that way. And then, Nick is just one of my all-time favorite Gamecocks, and he's been amazing since I've known him in high school when he was super under-recruited. So to see him now not only playing, it's not like he's just playing in a Super Bowl. Nick is getting his flowers, and he deserves that as well. He has played unbelievably, and I'm just so proud of him. So it's a great story and a great reminder to anybody that they might count you out at some point, but you always have the ability to get right back in it with talent, hard work. That's exactly what Nicky Manwari has done. Yes,
yeah, whatever. We're so far past this. I don't even care. I'm
Jack on over it. But Jack, were you upset last night? Did you watch the Sabres game?
No, I didn't watch the Sabres. I watched the Islander game. What happened with the Sabres?
Oh yeah, I forgot you're not a Sabres fan.
Yeah, I'm an Islanders fan. Yeah.
Doesn't I
had a great time watching the Islander game.
The Islanders game.
Yeah, it was hype. Yeah,
I think Matthew Schaefer is just the greatest.
He's so good. He's
so cool.
Awesome.
He should be on Team Canada. What is going on?
He should be. Not Bo Horvat, honestly. I love Bo, but Schaefer should be on there. So
there's a lot of interesting roster decisions I feel that were made between both Team Canada and Team USA. So my fingers are crossed I get to go to a Team Canada game. I'm not supposed to right now, but I am going to Team USA, which is going to be amazing. So Team USA, Latvia in their opening game. If anybody's watching it, let me know.
Yes.
So, all right, everybody. We'll see if I'm able to check in. Even if Jack is like on here, maybe I'll just pop in for like 5 minutes or something.
That'd be fun.
And give you guys a little live update from Milan. But we hope that you have an amazing rest of your day, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us here on GC Live. Jack Veltri, I am Kendall Smith. This has been GC Live here on Gamecock Central. Head over to GamecockCentral.com for more, and we'll see you guys soon. Bye.